Hello and welcome to the Hold All Tickets World Pool Preview. I am your host, Alex Donnelly. We're here for a massive weekend of racing. It is Everest Day at Royal Randwick. We've got the Caulfield Cup at Caulfield, and it's Champions Day at Ascot to finish off their flat season in the UK. So a massive show ahead of us. We'll be joined later in the show by Callum Jamieson from The Sun. He's going to have a look at the Caulfield Cup with us with a couple of UK runners and former Europeans in the race, and then he's going to take us through a couple of tips on the day up in England for Ascot's Champions Day. But as said, it is a humongous day this weekend for the World Pool, of course for the Hong Kong Jockey Club as well, with Car Rising going around in the Everest. But as we are brought to you by the World Pool, bet with the World Pool and the Hong Kong Jockey Club. So the World Pool races this weekend at Randwick are races 6 through 10 this Saturday. You've got race number 9 at Caulfield, which is the Caulfield Cup, and races 2 through 7 for Champions Day at Ascot. So a massive day of punting ahead of us here. So we're every chance of making history this weekend as well with the World Pool, because the biggest betted race in Australian history is Romantic Warriors Cox Plate at 10.9 million Australian. The biggest bet race in the World Pool was the Queen Elizabeth II Stakes at Royal Ascot, which former Hong Kong champion sprinter Wellington ran in. That was 12.9 million Australian. We are a hell of a chance this weekend of giving that a shake in the Everest with Car Rising going around. So 12.9 million Australian is that magic mark. But can't wait to get into it. There's a lot of bets to be had across this weekend, but we need to rip into the Randwick form this weekend, all thanks to the World Pool and the Hong Kong Jockey Club. As said, races 6 through 10 World Pool. At Randwick this weekend, the rail is out 3 metres. The track is currently a soft 5. We're recording this on Thursday night. They are expecting some rain on Friday, so hopefully the track isn't too wet come Saturday, especially for Car Rising. Race number 6 is the Sydney Stakes over 1,200 metres. It's basically the Everest backup race. It's worth a couple of $1 million as well. It's a great race each and every year as well. Overpass won this race last year. Parada's won this race in the past. But for a bet here, I'm going to go with number 15, Generosity. Now, she wouldn't have been out of a place in an Everest herself. Her runs this time in the Concorde and the Shorts, I thought have both been fantastic. She didn't have much luck in the Concorde. She was finishing up the inside quite well. And then in the Shorts, I thought, well, she might get a slot in the Everest given she finished so well behind Jolie Star and Briasa. She's had one trial since. It was nice and quiet. She wasn't knocked around. Now draws a bit of a sticky barrier in barrier 12, but she does get James McDonald. She steps up to the 1,200 metres. 2 of her wins have come over the 1,200 metres here. Just look back through her form. She was good in the Goodwood behind Reserve Bank. She was really good in the Quokka behind Joker's Grin and Headwall. Barrier 12 just needs that little bit of cover, and she can finish over the top of them and be right in this race. Happy to back her to kick off the day on the World Pool. Now, race number 7 at Royal Randwick is the main event of the day. It is the Everest over 1,200 metres, $20 on the line. Car Rising is going to be extremely short on the World Pool as well. So for punters, we're going to get a great chance to bet into this market over the weekend, because if you think you can get the champ beat, you're going to be well paid, and the exotic pools are going to be absolutely huge as well. We'll take a look at the speed map on the screen as it is there right now. Joe Pride and Bjorn Baker have already said in the media that Overpass and Marzu, they'll be going forward and trying to lead. So Car Rising, well, we saw in his barrier trial that he can jump and lead Overpass, but Zach Purton may want to take a sit just behind the speed, not want to use him up too early. Geez, Briasa and Magic Time could be stuck out on a limb from there. Jimmy Star's going to go back. Jetabeel's going to poke around. Tempted from barrier 1 does absolutely no work whatsoever. She looks to get a great run. War Machine, Jolly Star, and Lady Shenandoah will all look to get on the back of Car Rising. Maybe War Machine might have a bit more speed in his legs there. A couple of replays for the punters here. First of all is the Shorts, where Jolly Star was the winner of that race. You do have Jetabeel in this race. There's Generosity there sort of poking through as well for that early race, and Briasa the grey with Marzu in front. This is just an arrogant win from Jolie Star. She sits off them, comes down the middle of the track and storms over the top of them there. Briasa was good, and it sees why he improved into his second up run, but Jolie Star too good there. Probably the main lead up given she won so well. The next of the replays that we are going to look at is the premiere over the 1,200 metres at Royal Randwick. Of course, it is one of the main lead-ups as well. Here's Briasa just sitting behind Private Harry and Marzu. Jetabeel back on the inside in the nose roll in the yellow, and Jimmy Star just winding up. Jimmy's going to give him too big of a head start, you would think, this weekend. Here's Briasa just slowly getting into top gear, gets past Private Harry, goes see you later, and wins this race really well. But of course, everyone's going to be attracted to Jimmy Star's flashing light. Really strong through the line there. Obviously, the faster pace this weekend is going to suit. Now, the most important part of this is the barrier trial of Car Rising. Everyone's talked about it. We're not going to watch the whole barrier trial, because I think the most important part of this barrier trial is in the first couple of 100 metres. Now, Angel Capital's in this as well. He goes back to last in this trial, but you want to watch the start of Car Rising in the outside here. Bang. He's a length in front after about a couple of strides of overpass. So if he wants to on the weekend, he's going to be able to lead overpass. Zach Purton sat wide here. The track was very soft. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't change his lead legs. That's all we need to see of that. Here's what happens when Zach Purton takes a sit on Car Ying Rising. He sits off a good speed here in the Chairman's Sprint in April. I was lucky enough to be there. And in 3 strides, just absolutely puts the field away. You've got Helios Express and Satono Rev back in the field there, finishing off well. But the race is over by the time they hit the 200-meter mark. He's that far in front. Now, these horses are probably of the level of Satono Rev and Helios Express. So this is Car Ying Rising at one of his best wins last season. If he does this or turns up in any form like this, he's just going to win this race on the weekend. So, of course, I'm going to be with him on top. The one horse we didn't touch on in any of the replays is War Machine, number 5. I want to be with him in the Quinella, so I'm going to have a Quinella this weekend. Number 1, Car Ying Rising to win, with number 5, War Machine in for second. Well, obviously, War Machine can win and Car Ying Rising can run second, of course, but that is me, and that's how I want to play the Everest. I hope we give this World Pool record a nudge as well with the amount of money that is punted on this race this weekend. The next race coming up is race number 8, is the Silver Eagle over 1,300 metres. It is a lead up to the Golden Eagle in a few weeks' time. Linebacker was the winner of that Car Ying Rising trial. Geez, he trialled well in that event. But I'm going to go with number 9, Sabage, who's having its first start for Mick Price and Michael Kent Jr., formerly with the Jollies in South Australia. Damien Lane takes the ride from barrier 3. Thought his run last time in the Tobin Bronze was really good when he was behind Reserve Bank. Reserve Bank then went on to win the Goodwood. Sat right off in that day and hit the line really well. I think from barrier 3, he can settle a little bit closer here. You just go through his form. Some of the sectionals that this horse is able to run, only good horses can run. He was much quicker than benchmark at his last start through the last 600 metres. So I think he gets a good run. He's had a jump out and a barrier trial at Caulfield and Cranbourne. He looks set to go first up. Obviously, second up into the Golden Eagles, his go, but he looks ready to go. There is $1 million on the line, so I expect him to run well. Race number 9, we're going to have a look at another replay here and a speed map here because it is the King Charles Stakes over the 1,609 metres. I love this race because we're going to get a truly run contest with Pride of Jenny in this field. Of course, she's going to lead. She was back to her best last start in the Fiend. Mr. Brightside from the outside gate. He'll roll across. Wide barriers at the Randwick, 1,600 and no issue whatsoever. Pericles and Royal Patronage get a good run. Chow Wolf, if he can show his best, which we haven't seen for 12 months, he's well within this. Tom Kitten's going well. Fangirl's going to get back. And within the law has 48 kilos on her back. Surely she goes forward. And Lake Forest, last year's Golden Eagle winner, is in this event too. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at the last year's running of the King Charles. There's Pride of Jenny in front around the turn. Off we go here. Chow Wolf's about to pop off. Fangirl's back here. So Fangirl's in this event as well. And he's just about to hit top speed and really round them up and get over the top of them late. It was an absolutely scintillating performance that day by Chow Wolf here. You do see the Godolphin runner just looming up there as well. But Chow Wolf was absolutely phenomenal over the day. That was Pericles, who was just getting run down late. He's really come back in good form this time in Pericles. So I think he'll run better than he did that day. But Chow Wolf over the top, fantastic. Fangirl, a little bit plain, but she did have an injury out of that and missed all of the autumn. So we'll see how she goes. She's come back well as well, Fangirl. But look, I really want to be with Lake Forest here, is the horse that we haven't touched on in the replays. I thought his form this season over in the UK was quite good. He was good in the Queen and behind Docklands and Rosalion. Now, we'll talk about Docklands and Rosalion later because they are running this weekend at Ascot. Hasn't won since the Golden Eagle last year, but gets a soft run from barrier 2, gets Zach Purton as well. It could be in for a fat day this weekend. He got to Australia last year. He loved it. He won the Golden Eagle at a big price. They went 1,000,000 miles an hour, and he was fantastic storming over the top of them. William Haggis's record in Australia is absolutely outstanding, and I think we're going to get a great price this weekend to back Lake Forest, number 4, each way in the King Charles. Final event of the day is race number 10 at Randwick. It is the Hong Kong Jockey Club at World Pool Handicap. It is a benchmark 88 over 1,400 metres. I'm going to stick with Lord of Biscay. I liked his run the other day. I know he was well beaten. Sorry, I liked his run first up when he was beaten there. He sat just behind the speed, finished off well to be beaten a length and a half, and then disappointed his favourite last start behind Sir Artie and Asgarda. He was really well back there. He was well back for about $3 into about $2.20 and failed. I just think second up, there was a bit of a little gap between runs there, so I'm not sure what went wrong there, but now he's only had 3 weeks between runs coming into this. So from barrier 4, he's third up. His second up record actually is no good. So third up is where he could do some of his best work. He gets out over to a trip that he does like in the 1400 metres. Randwick, it might be a little bit softer under toes. It was pretty firm that day at Rose Hill. I think he's a good bet. I want to forgive him off that last start. I think he gets a good run behind the speed here for J-Mac. Chris Lees places his horses so well, but he looks good to go in the last race at Randwick. Now, that is Randwick previewed, all done and dusted for this weekend with the World Pool in action from races 6 through 10 this weekend at Royal Randwick. We're going to take a quick break, and after this, we're going to break down the Caulfield Cup and the Ascot Guard with Callum Jamieson from The Sun. Welcome back to the World Pool preview into the second segment here. Previewing the Caulfield Cup this weekend, 18 horses to go around with a little bit of an international flavour. Well, mostly an international flavour. I think there's 4 Australian-bred horses in this race. So bringing in a mate of ours, he's been on the show before and he's going to take us through some of these international runners. Welcome in Callum Jamieson from The Sun. Hey, Callum, how are you?
Good morning. How's it going?
It's going well, mate. It's that time of year where the Europeans come to Australia and just pilfer our prize money. Obviously, staying events is the UK's bread and butter, and you'll be flicking through this Caulfield Cup field going, oh, I know a fair few of these horses.
Yeah, I mean, a few of them have to change their names, don't they? But you can pick up on which ones they are. It's quite funny. It's, they don't often send the superstars down there, but, for good reason. It doesn't take a superstar to win some of these races. They're a bit of a unique test. It's the horses that basically can't make it at the top level in Europe will just get bought, sold for big money to go down under and win some big prizes down there. It suits all parties, really. So happy days. Yeah,
it is very rare that you see. I suppose Delius is probably the biggest name that's here at the moment. And Via Sistina obviously was a Group 1 winner before she came out here, but a horse like Alcohol Free flamed up. But it's very rare, and you'll see that in the Caulfield Cup this weekend. But it is interesting, and we'll go take a look at the speed map on the screen. I know probably speed maps aren't a massive thing over in the UK, but there looks to be a fair bit of speed here. Obviously, River of Stars is a year-long horse. It'll roll forward. Land Legend is one that maybe could go forward, but Chris Waller and his team, ever since he came across from James Ferguson, have been trying to get him to settle, so he may not do that. Valiant King loved the hot speed last start. He'll go back. Half Yours the favourite will kick up. Absurd runs in what I think is his 16th or 19th different racetrack. He turns up Barrier 1. No horse from Barrier 1's won since 1941. Middle Earth will go back. Maidan will roll further forward than what is up on the screen right now, I think, and so will Presage Nocturne. It's all a bit going on there, mate. Do you know of any of these which will roll forward from the speed? Like, where will Maidan, I guess? He's probably the most prominent one here in the markets this week. Where will he sit in a run?
He's been drawn pretty well as well, hasn't he? Which helps matters for him to go forward. I think I won't be right up there, but I'd be very surprised if he's not. He's got form over a lot shorter, so he's got the gears to definitely kick up there and be on the pace. And that's. I mean, it's funny because the races he runs in back home, or when he did run back home, they're a lot smaller fields. So trying to gather, because a lot of our listed races, Group 3 races, which is the equivalent, they rarely get over 5, 6, 7, 8 runners. So this is a completely different test for him, which is probably more of a worry. But as long as he doesn't get caught, back in that backwash, I think, he's got a fair old chance. It's a big ask. Obviously, his first run out there in a race like this, you'd like to have seen him have maybe a prep for it to some extent. But, the Crisfords, they know the time of day out there. So, they're probably pretty confident, I'd say, that he's up to it.
Yeah, and we'll look at a replay of his. Presage Nocturne's a horse whose replays we don't have, but he's a colt, and he looks like 3,000 metres, and possibly the Melbourne Cup's going to be better suited for him, because this almost looks like just a tune-up prep run for him after his third place in the Kerguelen.
Yeah, he's not the typical horse that I would say would thrive in a race like this. He's more of a stayer. I worry that it looks like a prep, like you say. I worry he's probably going to lack some of the gears to go the pace. I'm not entirely 100% sure what the ground's looking like, but if it's a bit quick, that might be the worry too, just because a lot of his form back in France is on pretty soft ground. I mean, in France, the similarities you've got is probably that a lot of their racing is quite sedate early on, and it's about a bit of a finishing kick, which might suit him out in Australia. But for me, he's probably for one further down the line rather than this race for sure.
Yeah, well, the ground will be pretty firm here. It's been 30 degrees here today in Melbourne. Tomorrow's good weather, and they'll just be naturally watering the track. So it should be a good 4, could be a good 3 by the time we get there. And what about Absurd? He's come out here and loomed up in a few Melbourne Cups, and now he drops back to 2,400 metres. He's won twice over 10 furlongs, as you'll call it here.
Yeah.
What are we doing with this horse? Because it's the third time that he's come out here, and it's the first time that he's running the Caulfield Cup. He's obviously going to the Melbourne Cup too, but could this race be more suitable for him?
I'd be surprised if it was. I think this might be a tad sharp for him. I mean, you look back at his Melbourne Cup run last year. If anything, he was sort of staying on well at the end of that. So I think this will be. It looks like a perfect prep for him for the Melbourne Cup. To be honest, I'm surprised. He's not a huge price for this, but I'm surprised at the price he is for the Melbourne Cup. To be honest,
Yep.
I think this is the perfect prep for him. He was pretty unlucky. Also, he got caught on the rail a couple of times last year. I think this is the perfect prep for him. I think maybe last year they thought he didn't get a prep in, so this year maybe that might make the difference. I think all signs point towards this being a prep. There was talk of the Breeders' Cup for him, but if he's here now, I think that looks pretty unlikely at this stage. So.
We'll go to the first of our replays here. It is the Turnbull Stakes, and they're coming around the turn here. You've got Sir Delius in the yellow rolling up to them now. We don't really need to worry too much about him. Deacon's in the OTI colours, about to get through. Half Yours is the favourite, and the black cap down the outside. And Laird Legend's in the Legend colours, of course. And there's Middle Earth poking up along the fence late as well. So Laird Legend runs one of the better lasts you'll see here, because sectionally, his last couple 100 metres was as strong as Half Yours. It just doesn't look as good there. And there's also Adelaide River on the fence just finishing off late as well. So they went pretty quick early. So out of that race, it's Half Yours looks the horse, but Land Legend's the one I want to sort of follow here. Here's the Bart Cummings. They went 1,000,000 miles an hour. The grey is Valiant King out the widest of all. He's just winding up to get over the top of them. Revelare's in the red and the check cap, and he looks to be a risk at the 2,400 metres, I think. But it's just this win of Valiant King, you know a bit more about him than what we would in Australia, but he looks just an out-and-out stayer, and he absolutely ate up a hot pace this day.
Yeah, I mean, with him, what are the vibes at the moment? I mean, that looked. Was it a bit of a flash out the pan last time, or was it just the race fell into his lap a bit? I mean, it's he was a good horse here, but there's probably classy. Middle Earth would have been a classier horse than him back home, and Meydan and the likes too. I mean, is he really kicked on a bit, or is it?
He ran third in a Chairman's Handicap, which is a 2,600 metre Sydney Cup lead up. That was at Randwick, so Randwick, big track like Flemington. Everything fell into place here. They went very quick from barrier 16. He's going to go back to last. They're probably going to need to go fast again. That was a win and you're into the Melbourne Cup. So this is almost a tick over run for the Melbourne Cup. Now, something we're not across is Sapporo form. Here is Golden Snap, its most recent run. This is a horse that's going to wind up and sort of get ready for the Melbourne Cup. She just needs to run top 8 to get into the Melbourne Cup. So that's all she needs to do. She's the grey widest of all. Finishing off, she looks like she needs every bit of 3,200. But this is the one I want to talk to you about. And you can take us through this, Callum, because Giavoletto is in the blue. He's the winner. Kalpana's in the Frankel colours on the outside. And Meydan, who's been well back the last 2 weeks, is on the inside. Now, the form through this race looks very strong.
Very strong. I mean, the winner there is almost probably run a career best back home. He's a bit of a traveller, he's gone over to Hong Kong and he's won the Vars, but that's a great run from him. I think Kalpana probably hasn't run 1,000,000 miles off her best there. I know it was a prep run for the Arc, but Giavoletto has pulled out a lot there, and I don't think there were many excuses with Kalpana. So for Meydan to run he was only beaten a length or 2 by the winner and less than that by Kalpana. They're proven Group 1 performers. He's got a very similar profile for obvious reasons to Without a Fight, who has obviously, been a star out there. Actually won this before going on to win the Melbourne Cup. Obviously, it's the same. He was still with the Crisfords when he won this race back there. I think Ed, who is the son of Simon, sort of trained with his dad, has spent a lot of time out in Australia, so he knows the horses that are going to work out there. Meydan's not going to win a Group 1, probably not a Group 2 back home. He's perfect there. He's got a high rating than when Without a Fight shipped down to Australia out back home here. I mean, largely that is off the back of that run there. But he's really interesting. I think he's probably a little bit short considering it's his first run out there. It is a big ask. It's his first time over the trip as well. I think it would suit him, but there are a few questions there. He's probably priced up on potential rather than what he's actually done so far, but the bookies have to take that chance, don't they?
So this stable bought out obviously Without a Fight for a Melbourne Cup a few years ago, got shifty ground and then stayed here with the Freedmans and got firm ground that we're going to get this weekend. But they also bought out West Wind Blows, who was second in a Caulfield Cup as well. And from what we can sort of gather is that West Wind Blows had more runs on the board, but this horse looks like he has more upside. He's a 5-year-old that's only had 13 starts, and he looks to get a perfect run here from barrier 5, and apparently all reports from quarantine is that he is thriving.
Yeah, I think he's got an exciting profile. I think that again, that's what it comes down to. The others are probably a bit more exposed. I mean, it's the trip as well. He looks like he's almost been waiting to go up and trip a bit. He's by Frankel. He'll eat up those extra 100 meters or so at the end. The ground's going to probably suit him. He's got form on mixed, on quick ground, slow ground out here, but a lot of his best form is when the ground is on the firmer side. So I'll be surprised if he doesn't take to this. Won't be because he's not a suitable horse for it. It'll just be something goes wrong in the race, or it's all a bit too much for him to start with if he doesn't go to plan straight away.
Yeah, I'm pretty keen on him. I'm going to back him each way. I think he gets a great run here. I think half yours is a bit too short currently. I think on the World Pool he might blow out a bit. So this is a great race for your exotics as well. But I'd be throwing Maidan in my exotics, also Land Legend at big odds. There's probably 5 or 6 you can throw in. From the UK point of view, what would you be if you had to have a bet in this race? What would you be looking at? Because obviously we do have a lot of UK and European form lines through here.
I mean, Maidan's definitely the most interesting one of the new ones, but he's a little bit short. I mean, Middle Earth is fascinating for me. It's really not gone to plan since he's gone out there by the looks of things. But, he fell out the stalls in the Turnbull completely. I don't know if that was by design or it was just to try and get a race into him. But it screamed of a prep run for something, slowly coming back to hand, you'd say. And I think out of all the horses in the race, he's definitely got the classiest form. Sort of back form over here to go out there with. I know it's not always as straightforward as that, and there's more to it. But he back a couple of years ago, if he was racing against Maidan, Middle Earth would probably be odds-on favourite with Maidan out 2s, 3s, 4s. With a few other in there. So that for whatever reason, it's not worked out there. But I think at some point he's definitely going to win a big one.
Yeah, well, he's been well backed already early in this week, but there's been some funky movements with him all the way through this prep. But Mark Zara, the jockey, Caulfield and Melbourne Cup winning jockey, booked for this and the Melbourne Cup, so that tells you how he's going at home. But let's get to your home base here, Ascot for Champions Day. It's the big finale of the flat season over there. We're going to go have a look at a few of the races. The World Pool is in action this weekend at Ascot for races 2 through 7. We're going to take a look at 4 of the races on the card here, the first of which being the Champion Sprint Stakes. It is the 205, and it is for Australian punters, race number 3 on the card. Obviously, declarations come out later tonight, Australian time. We're recording this on Thursday night. But sort of take us through this, because Lazat, he looked like he was going to take all before him this season. He's fizzled out a little bit his last few runs, but how are you looking at this race?
Yeah, I mean, Lazat, he's by far and away the best horse in this race. I mean, our sprinters are at best, I'd call them a middling bunch. You've seen what As4 has been able to come out and do here. She's obviously not here this time. Normally the ground has gone pretty soft this time of year. Weirdly, there might even be a bit of good to firm in the ground come Saturday. It's just been really dry, sort of end of summer, early autumn. So a lot of horses get saved for this meeting, think it's going to be soft. So I would probably disregard those ones for now. I mean, a lot of them are versatile enough. But Lazat, he's blotted his copybook a bit since Royal Ascot. But that form with Satono Rev when he pulled clear is miles clear of this field. I mean, it is a race that throws up some big price winners, but I think that's largely down to the ground. It's normally the end of a long, hard season. Lazat's not really had a too busy season. I think you can forgive him at Haydock last time. There's a horrible bias there at the moment on the draw, and he was just completely on the wrong side. Didn't end up finishing off too badly. I think he's fairly priced, I'd say. I wouldn't put anyone off him at current odds, but I think it's one to throw out there is 10 Bob Tony at a massive price. He was 3rd in the Foray last time, which is his Group 1 form. Finished off pretty strongly. It is over a bit further. Another 200 metres, so that is the slight worry, but it's a real stiff finish at Ascot for a 6 furlong race. It's probably about as testing as you could get. And I think he could run into a place, and huge prices have won this race even in recent years.
So 10 Bob Tony could be one for the exotics on the World Pool to kick off the evening. Race number 4, the 245, is the British Champions Fillies and Mares Stakes. It's over a mile 4, which is 2,400 metres. Now, Kalpana, who we just saw in that Maidan replay, is down to line up here, allegedly, again, before acceptances, so maybe not. She was, in the nicest way of saying it, absolutely slaughtered in the arc, should have finished closer. A Stranger's been tipped up here, but you're looking a little bit elsewhere here. You've got a bit of value.
Yeah, the top 3 there all probably want it a bit softer. So you've got Burrows' horse as well. Ward Eye's 3rd in at the moment. I think she'll probably want it softer as well. Australia definitely want it softer. I mean, on all known form, Kalpana is the form pick here by a long way. She's miles clear on the ratings. But I don't. She won this last year really easily. That was on soft ground. That race has worked out terribly though. She's not won this season at all. I think the Arc was probably her best run, given the trip she got there, having to come about 4 or 5 wide at the worst point on the bend in, wasn't given the best ride. I mean, I worry that that was a hard race less than 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
I wouldn't be chancing her in this, considering the prep. So yeah, a much bigger price. The one I've gone for is One Look. I can't believe she's out at the sort of price that she is off the back. I know it's a new trip, which is the slight worry, but she was third, beaten a quarter of a length over an Arc weekend in a solid red hot Group 1, and she's really being overlooked here for Paddy Toomey, who's an Irish trainer not many people have cottoned on to yet, but he's going places. He's one to keep an eye on.
So again, another one that could be big odds on the weekend as well. And if you do find the exotics there and get some of the favourites kicked out, you could be in for a mozza of a prize. Next event, race 5, Queen Elizabeth II Stakes. It is a Group 1 over the straight mile here. This almost looks simple, that if Field of Gold turns up at his best form, he should kill them. But the 3-year-old form in the UK this season over a mile looks a bit average. Rosalian keeps finding one better. For Australians, Dockland's in this. He won the Queen Anne, obviously. And Carl Spackler was meant to be running in the King Charles this weekend at Royal Randwick, but Yulong went, let's keep him in the UK and transferred him to John and Thaddy Gosden. This is a very interesting race here, even just before acceptances come out. But once again, you found one that looks like it'll come up big odds on the weekend on the totes.
Yeah, I mean, you've summed it up for Field of Gold pretty well there. If he returns to his Guineas form earlier in the season, his Royal Ascot form, he probably will win this. He obviously gets a bit of weight as well as a 3-year-old. But that's a big if. He's been off a while. He was stuffed in the Sussex Stakes. And, it's something they found at She's after that, he's obviously trained by John Gosden, so you trust him to be backfiring, and they wouldn't be running him here if he wasn't. But I think he's a bit short. I think you can take him on considering what we've just said.
And he'll probably be odds on the World Pool as well, which won't be something for the punters to dive into.
No, he's a name, isn't he? So, Docklands is a big price again, considering. I mean, he just always runs his race at Ascot. Perfect for him. But it's never so brave for me. Pretty unexposed. Joined Andrew Baldwin from Sir Michael Stout when he retired. Stout was trying him over sprint trips. He's since stepped up in trip, and I think he's already won over a mile at Ascot. That was on the turning track. He's won a Group 1 since at York. He beat Lake Forest there. I just think he's sort of the coming force in this division. The milers tend to sort of take it in turns, beating each other. We haven't had a superstar for a while. I mean, Field of Gold was potentially going to be that until he fluffed his line. So I'm happy to go with Never So Brave at decent price, like you say.
Let's get to the main event of the day. And this honestly could be the best race of the season across Europe. It is the Quipco Champions Stakes. It's over 2,000 metres, a mile 2 in the UK. Ombudsman, Delacroix, Calandagan a line up as well. Economics is back from the dead, and Al McCam as well could also line up. This is a phenomenal race, and if it comes out to be, rattling hard ground, the best horse is going to stand up and win this event. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's probably the race of the season. Perhaps you could argue the Arc, but there were no sort of superstars going into the Arc. We've had a couple of nice horses come out of it, but this has got everything. The trainers' title's actually sort of still on the line between Aidan and John as well. There's a lot of money up for grabs here. Calandagan, he shortened up the last sort of week. I think he'd been a bit ignored at first, but if he brings his A game, he's not miles off these front two as well. I fancy Ombudsman. I think he's the shortest of the three, but I think he is just a better horse, and it should be a good gallop. I think both Aidan and Godolphin will run pacemakers, which is good. There'll be no complaints. The track will suit him. John Gosden loves the Champion Stakes. I mean, he bullied Delacroix at York. I know Delacroix's come out since, but I think all this season has basically been based around this race for Ombudsman, whilst for Delacroix, it's a bit of an afterthought after Leopardstown, I think, and I think this will tee Ombudsman up, potentially Breeders' Cup, maybe even a Japan Cup. I think he's a real star. I think he could beat these. He won't walk it, but I'm quite confident he's the best horse in the race.
Of course, I was lucky enough to be there. Royal Ascot, again, another World Pool event. Thank you for the tickets that day. I saw him absolutely stomp up in the Prince of Wales. So if he brings that run, I don't think they see which way he goes. But tell me about economics. What's going on here? We haven't seen him forever, and he returns in this event, and he's running over 2,000 metres. But surely if it's rock hard, he won't run.
He'll run. He's back. Apparently worked at Newmarket last week, just before racing. So there's a bit of a crowd there to see him. He's just a very, very fragile horse. I think he bleeds quite a lot. I think that's not a secret anymore. They tried to keep it a bit hush at the start. But, if he was the coming force last season, I mean, it was this meet in this very race last year where it was a bit of a damp squib when he was beat down the field. But, he's a big prize. It's a massive ask coming into this. I mean, it's probably the highest champion stakes for nearly a decade, I'd say. And, if it was a normal renewal, you'd give him a big shout. But I think you can only watch him given the field at the top of the market.
As us Australians have learnt, never doubt Willie Haggis. But Callum, mate, we've gone through all the races there at Ascot that we want to get through this week. Thank you very much for taking us through, obviously, the Caulfield Cup as well and the Champions races at Ascot.
Thank you. Sorry you couldn't get the blogger on, maybe next time.
Yeah, I don't think we could afford his fee. But thank you, punters, for watching along on the World Pool preview this week. Just remember, of course, we are hoping that we see the punting records broken of 12.9 million Australian on the Everest this weekend. But make sure you do gamble responsibly this weekend. Of course, thank you to our friends at the World Pool and the Hong Kong Jockey Club. Good luck if you're having a bet this weekend. And we'll catch you next week for the Cox Plate preview on the World Pool preview.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.